Welcome to the Happiness Podcast. I'm Dr. Robert Puff. Worries. Do you know what makes worries so challenging? It's the fact that once we figure out something, we resolve an issue. Do you know what happens? A new worry arises. It's like the second one is completed, there's another one coming down the row, ready for us to deal with, resolve, and be worried about. For example, when we're a young adult, we just think about if we can finish school and land a good job, all our worries will be gone and life will be great. And then what happens? We do get that job. We perhaps graduate from university. But then we have to find a place to live. We have to buy a car. We have to get insurance. We have to pay for our foods. And this becomes our new worry. And then we think, well, maybe if I can find someone to journey life with, it'll relax the burden of all these responsibilities. I'll have someone to do things with, and life will be great. And then we find that person. And now we have to deal with their personality, what their wants are, what their needs are, how we get along. Are we fighting over something? And then we say, well, maybe if we have kids, that's when life really begins, and everything will be great. Then we have that first child, maybe a second or a third, and we realize a lot comes with having children. And we worry about their future now, not just ours, our partner's future. Our worries become bigger, more expanded, because more people are in our circle. And we begin to think about when we were younger, and all we had to worry about was ourselves. It seems so much easier then. Well, then we think, well, if I can just get a home, everything will be fine, because then I won't have to worry about rising rents. So perhaps we do. But then we realize homes need repairs. And we have to now start saving for our kids' college. And there's so many expenses coming. It seems endless. And we better save for retirement, because that may come too. And the list goes on and on. But then we think the big kahuna's coming. We can retire and everything will be fine. And we do retire. And we realize now we may be on a limited budget. Not only that, our health may not be perfect all the time anymore. When we get sick, we can get really sick, and it can affect what we want to do. We thought we'd have all this time to travel, live well, live the good life, and now we have to start thinking about our health and whether we have enough money because of the superinflation going on in the world. Do you see how worry is such a trap? Because no matter what we solve, it's like it's a conveyor belt. A new worry's kind of come down that conveyor belt, and it's going to be there for us to resolve. And then another, and then another, and then another. And after a while, we wake up in the morning and we're just tired. We're tired because even though sometimes we resolve a lot of worries, and every once in a while, it seems like they're all gone. But then they creep back in. A new worry arises. There's always seems to be something coming over the horizon, just waiting to get us. So is there anything we can do? I believe there are three options that we choose when it comes to our worries. The first two are not very good, but the third one can really work wonders when it comes to worries. So let's talk about the first one. The first one is we just accept life is hard. It's filled with worries. There's nothing we can do about it, and we just have to live with it. The term for it is learned helplessness. We just learn that there's nothing we can do. We're helpless, and we accept that helplessness. It's a hard life. It's a difficult life. It's one in which we just grin and bear it, and we say, life is hard, and then we die. I know it sounds very depressing, but a lot of people think this is true, that life is hard, and then we die. You may be thinking that right now too. Today I'm going to suggest a different option, but if that is what you're holding on to, perhaps you'll be open to looking at it from a different perspective. The second thing that many people do in regards to worries is they try to numb them. They try to ignore them. They try to pretend they're not there. They numb them by coming home after a long day, utterly exhausted, and turn on mindless television as a way to not think about their worries. Or perhaps they come home and have a glass or two or three or four of wine or several beers or joints or take a medication as a way to numb their brain from their constant worries. They find that when their brain is numb, the worries aren't there. But the difficulty with numbing ourselves is that when we do that, yes, it does work for a little while, but in the long run, these addictions, these numbing techniques have dire consequences to our life. I don't know if you have homeless people where you live, but homelessness is really a very sad phenomenon because it's about people that have gotten so far along in life with the choices that they've made or have been made for them. And often there's a lot of numbing going on, a lot of addictions because they just can't deal with life. And then they end up with all the worries trying to numb them, having far more worries because now they don't even have a home. Numbing can really have dire consequences if we're not careful. So I do not recommend this option either. So what do I recommend? Is there really a way to live life worry-free? Perhaps not worry-free, but with a lot less worry. I want to explain how our minds work. Our minds are there in many ways to protect us, to keep us safe. We've inherited this gift from our ancestors who in the past lived very challenging lives. They lived in caves, they lived on the prairie, and life was dangerous. And what happened was the ones that were most careful, the ones that were very much circumspect, making sure that everything was as safe as possible, they're the ones that survived. And so these genes, these worry genes, got passed on. But unfortunately, in today's age, we don't necessarily need to worry about lions eating us anymore, but we have many other things that same genetic code, that same disposition can be aligned to. We can worry about paying our bills. We can worry about our kids getting into a good university. We can worry about inflation. We can worry about finding a good job or losing our job. So instead of worrying about dying or being eaten, now our minds are trying to protect us from other things. But in the process, it really robs us of living well. So what can we do to reduce these worries? Well, the first thing we can do is not add to them. What I mean by that is, what type of conversations are we participating in that might be adding to our worries? What things are we watching on the news or watching on our phones that could be contributing to our worries about the future? What things are we engaging with that cause us to think about things that could go wrong? Because there are many things out there that can feed our worries. And if we're not careful, they will be fed, and then they're going to be very strong and just screaming in our ears. So the first thing we do is we stop feeding our worries by exposing ourselves to things that clearly feed it. The next thing we do is that we embrace change. We embrace impermanence. We realize that things don't stay the same, and that's okay. Clinging on to a very good day, a very good month, a very good year causes us to suffer. Life changes. And again, it doesn't have to be bad. It just changes. As we get older, yes, we may have more health problems, but now we have more free time to relax and do other things. We may be threatened by the loss of our job, but then we just get another one, even if we have to go back to school. It's okay because we can adjust. Let's say we were happily married, and now we're going through a divorce and we're single. Again, we just adjust. Life is impermanent. We have new opportunities, new people to meet, new things we can explore. So it's a sense of it's okay, change happens. And then the next thing we do is we say, everything doesn't have to be okay for me to be happy right now. I think that's what catches a lot of people. They think I'll be worry-free when there aren't any worries. What about we'll be happy even with the worries? Because we realize There's just always something that our mind can be worried about, and we're not going to give it that much attention. We'll acknowledge it, but we're not going to engage with it. That's the next thing we do. We say, I get it. Worries come, but I don't have to give them my attention. Yep, you're there again. You want me to worry about losing my job, but instead, I'm going to work on this project right now. Instead, I'm going to have dinner with my wife. Instead, I'm going to go to the gym and just work out. We do other things. We don't feed these worries. Instead, we acknowledge them because we realize they're going to be there. But if we don't feed them, and we don't engage with them, then they're not going to be as strong, and they get quieter and quieter. And because now we don't need to be worry-free, we just need to not engage with these worries as much, we'll find that our happiness, our peace, our joy will begin to become the predominant experience we have during our lifetime. Because we don't need to be worry-free, we just need to not engage with the worries as much, and we need to say, it's okay. I realize I'm worried about perhaps losing my job, but right now I have a job, and it's okay. I realize right now I'm worried about finding my soulmate. It's okay. I can still enjoy my friends until I find that soulmate, and in the interim, I'll keep looking. It's a sense of working towards solving our worries, but not needing the worry to be fixed in order to be happy. We can be happy even with the worry. The next thing we can do is realize that we do have a lot of attachments in life, that I'll be happy when I pay off my home. I'll be happy, I'll be worry-free when I get into the university that I really want to get into. I'll be worry-free when I get a cancer-free diagnosis from my doctor. Those are the things that we do. We're attached to certain outcomes. Life doesn't guarantee us really anything ultimately. And the fewer attachments we have, the freer we become. Because then there's not that much we necessarily need. And so the worries become less because we're not attached to, I have to have this and that and all these different things, and then I'll be worry-free. Instead, we say, I don't need that much to be happy. I may have things that I prefer, but they are preferences. If they're not there, if for a while I have to make changes in my life because I've lost my job and I have to live on less now, that's okay, I'll do that until I find another job. If I'm going through a season of being single and can't find someone to spend my life with, that's okay. I'll hang out with my single friends more and just enjoy the freedom that comes with being single. So what begins to happen is we begin to flow with life. Yes, the worries will be there because there's just always something to worry about, but we don't engage with it nearly as much. We just flow with life and we say, whatever happens, I'm going to make that work. And when we do that, what we'll find is the worries will become far less because now instead of fighting life, instead of trying to control life, which creates and adds to our worries, we flow with life, and that flow creates a sense of peace and a sense of overall happiness in our hearts because instead of fighting life, we flow with life. Because our lives do not have to be filled with worry. There are specific things that we can do to reduce them and find our peace and happiness right now. So in conclusion, I just want to summarize the things we can do to reduce our worries and live a far more beautiful life. The first thing is, we don't have to feed our worries. The next thing is, we can embrace impermanence. Then, we don't have to have everything okay. The next thing is, we don't have to engage with the worries when they kick in. And then we can realize we have attachments which are feeding our worries. And lastly, we can flow with life. If we begin to really work on doing these things, we will find that our worries will become less and less. And we'll find now that life truly can be a beautiful adventure, no matter what's going on with our lives, because we now are flowing with life. Thank you for joining me on the Happiness Podcast. If you'd like to learn more about the podcast, please go to happinesspodcast.org. And until next time, accept what is, love what is.